So now recording on the video, and I'm going to dive into my introduction and we'll take it from there. So here we go. Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of the Podiatry Legends podcast designed to help you feel, see, and think differently about the podiatry profession. With me today is Karey Fleming. Now, she owns a business in Nova Scotia, and it's called Health Walks Podiatry Clinic and Shoe Store. So, Karey, how are you doing today?
Good. Great.
Nova Scotia. Now, I'm taking it at the moment, while we're recording this, it is February. This episode will probably come out in March. And I'm taking it you have a little bit of snow at the moment.
Well, funny, during COVID, we, maybe people don't know where Nova Scotia is. So we're the second most easterly province in Canada. And I live in a pocket. You're not going to believe this when I tell you. We have no cell phone coverage where I live.
Oh, right.
It's a pocket in a mountain, in a side of a hill. Our log house is built inside of a hill, and not everybody in Canada lives in a log house.
I was going to point that out to people. If anyone's watching the video when I upload this, if they're watching the video and they see your background, they go, "Oh, is that one of those fake backgrounds?" Because I'm expecting Yogi Bear to come walking through that back door.
No. So, I mean, I get the what's the word I'm looking for? I remember as a teenager. What is it?
It's like a cliche. You're in a log cabin in the snow.
I remember working at my father's service station pumping gas as a teenager. And I remember, I'll never forget this. It was in August. So we're like 30 degrees Celsius and it's absolutely beautiful out. And this car pulls up to get gas with skis on the roof. And they were from Southern United States. And they had no idea that we had summers. They just thought of Canada and they thought log chalets and snow and skiing, and then thought they were going to get skiing in August. So I get the cliche of me in a log house, but during COVID, we moved to the country. I wanted to kind of get away from it all. And we live in a log chalet on a lake, and there's all kinds of snow.
So because I went and had a look on your website before we spoke, and you had you had a video there and some photos about Nova Scotia. And I went, what a beautiful place. Obviously, all those photos were taken in summer because I'm assuming now every photo would look exactly the same. It would be white.
Pretty much. Now, throughout Nova Scotia, like Halifax, the main city, they're right by the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean. So they just get snow and then the next day it's gone. So they don't have the same amount that we would out in the country, but we like to ski and snowshoe. And for me, if it's summer, I want it to be summer. And if it's winter, I want snow because we skidoo and we do lots of snow sports. So
how many months of the year?
We skate on our lake.
How many months of the year is it snowy?
Well, years ago when I grew up, we used to have snow all December. We always had a white Christmas and it would last until sometimes into April, like sometimes Easter, we would still have snow on the ground. So we don't see that anymore. There's lots of, my son is 16 and he's never seen a white Christmas. So we usually get it in January and it stays until definitely the end of March. Not enough sometimes to ski or skidoo, but that's one of the reasons we moved out here so that we actually had more snow because we're in a snow belt where I live, which is a very, it's on the other side of a mountain. And so we get a lot of snow here and we're loving it.
So skidoo, is that like a snowmobile?
Yes.
Okay. So do you snowmobile to work?
No, we're not that north. Like
that's a silly question.
If we were in the Yukon or the Northwest Territories or Northern Ontario, you would definitely snowmobile. Skidoo, I call it skidooing because I've always had a skidoo. It's like Kleenex. It's a brand, but it's kind of there's a word for that too that I can't think of.
Yeah, it is.
When a brand actually becomes the generic term for the.
Yeah, and they reckon you can actually, I was reading a thing on trademarks once and it said that you can lose a trademark if you don't protect the way that people are using it and saying it.
Yeah.
That then people can just refer to something as, like in Australia, over there you probably call it a cooler, which you probably don't need at the moment. But during summer, when you don't have snow around, you put your beer in a cooler. Well, in Australia, we just refer to it as an esky.
Oh, that's a brand name.
But that's a brand name was called esky. But now everyone just refers to all their coolers as, can you grab an esky? That's just what we refer to. In New Zealand, it's a chili bin.
A chili bin.
But they say chili bin. But it's so each country calls it something slightly different. But in Australia, we refer to it as an esky. because the original one came out and that was the brand.
That's a neat story.
So
yeah, it's the same thing with Skidoo.
So anyone who's listening to this, if you have your business name or anything trademarked, or you've got any sort of trademark, just remember, if other people are starting to use that term, you need to come down on them like Thor's hammer and stop them actually using it, because if it becomes a term that everybody uses, it's hard to protect it after that.
Because then you lose your branding.
Yeah, don't mind me. If I cough every now and then, it's because my throat is really dry. It's not COVID. So no one needs to worry or be concerned about it.
We're okay. We're 6 feet apart anyway.
We are definitely social distancing. So let's dive into your story a little bit. So people are listening to this. So your background is occupational therapy, and then from there you became a pedorthist.
You're right.
And then from there you ended up owning podiatry clinics.
Yes.
Now everyone that's listening to this has gone, oh, now I'm intrigued. So yeah, I know your finger's like a mad criminal. So what's the backstory? How did you go from that progression, OT, pedorthist, podiatry clinic?
I actually in high school tried to get into the ROTP, which is the university educated portion of getting into the military. And I didn't get in the first year. So I decided that I potentially would like to become an occupational therapist. And I had some exposure. I had a small 4-year-old cousin who passed away with a brain tumor, and I saw the occupational therapist just absolutely change the family's quality of life and my cousin's quality of life. And I thought, you know what, that's really cool. So I applied to be an OT, and I got in. I went to Dalhousie University here in Halifax, Nova Scotia. And I was recruited to Newfoundland, which is the actual most east coast of Canada, and worked there for 6 years. And what I specialized in was motor vehicle accidents and workers' compensation claims. So I saw a lot of people, helping them get back to work. And 9 times out of 10, I was dealing with a neck or back injury.
Yeah.
Some shoulder, some arm, but almost every time getting back to work, they would talk about their feet. So I started thinking, there's something to this. And so I'm a lifetime learner. I love taking courses. And so I just kind of dabbled into a little bit more about feet, because of course, as an OT, we specialize in hands, right?
Yeah.
So the feet were like right off my radar. So I took some extra courses, and then I ended up working in a private clinic in Newfoundland, and the owner was a pedorthist. And I was a little bit more intrigued, didn't really jump in yet until I opened my first clinic in Newfoundland and started providing orthotics. And back then I didn't know better, and I used Footmax. And at the time they had that pressure mat, and it was like a big U-Haul. And so I started my pedorthic kind of knowledge with Footmax. And then I moved back to Nova Scotia. I wanted to come home, and I flew back and forth, running my clinic in Newfoundland and then another one here in my hometown, New Glasgow, Nova Scotia. And decided that I would really jump in, because my clinic here in Nova Scotia, although it was doing really well, the foot side of things started taking over.
Yeah.
So it was a lot easier to market, right? How do you market occupational therapy? Nobody knows what occupation is. They think it's your job. Well, your job is actually your vocation. And your occupation is anything you do in the run of a day that occupies your time. So brushing your teeth is an occupation. Putting on your shoes.
The definition. That's how it actually came about.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
Right. So the foot side of things really took off. It was just more easy to explain to people what we offered in regards to foot pain and orthotics. So that's how it happened. So just really gradually, the orthotic side of things took over the business. And so I decided to go all in and became a Canadian certified pedorthist. And then the OT just petered out, and I held it as an identity for far too long. And one year I got a bill in the mail with my college and my association fees, and I went, done. I'm done.
Okay. So from that point, you put on the pedorthist hat and you went, that's all I'm going to be doing.
I mean, as an OT, the way that we're trained is very unique, and we look at things as a puzzle almost. So there's always kind of, I never can take that hat off, right? I love my training as an OT, and I think it's what makes me a really good pedorthist. But I retired as an OT after 25 years. And so I've had my clinic in New Glasgow for 20 years. And then I opened up a second location because we hired a podiatrist, and it freed me up to work on the business, because really, really at the base of my soul, I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
That's it.
And there's
That's
nothing
my
wrong
gig.
with it.
No, absolutely not.
So can I ask you a question? So you set this business up as a pedorthist, making orthotics for patients, used your OT background and that skill set because you're then looking at the whole body and then fixing foot problems. And because that was something that somebody was on here recently, and they said, to think that podiatry is the only people that actually understand or can fix the foot is very narrow thinking. They said there's a lot of ways to fix a foot problem, and everybody does it slightly different, and based on their beliefs and what we understand will let us know that this is what we think is best. So I don't want to get into that side of things, but so when you employed a podiatrist the first time, were they predominantly still just doing orthotics? So you had an orthotic business set up?
Well, what was interesting is that it took us a long time to recruit a podiatrist. We have a real shortage here in Atlantic Canada because we don't have a school. So vast majority of podiatrists who come to Nova Scotia are from the UK because of all the schools there.
Okay.
I think we have one chiropody school in Toronto. We have a podiatry with actually physician podiatry school in Quebec. And they typically don't come east. And so we have to immigrate. And so I've become great at immigration. It's a nightmare, but I muddle through it. So it was interesting because our first podiatrist was a female from Poland.
Okay.
And very little training in biomechanics. So I spent a lot of time with her. She was trained in the UK. But it was exciting because now we became like a one-stop foot shop, because we could do the skin and nail care, we could do the nail surgeries, we could do the orthotics, we had the shoe store. It was amazing, and we could really service our clients well, and we learned a lot from each other. So I learned about the whole skin and nail side of things, and she learned about the biomechanical side of things, which I was a bit surprised about, because I thought, just from what the research I've done and watching podiatrists and following podiatrists on LinkedIn, I really felt that they knew more about biomechanics than what she came to the table with.
Yeah. I think it depends too on the school that they go through and what the emphasis is as they go through. So I know.
And their work placements.
Yeah. But I know in Australia, there is a lot of emphasis put on biomechanics, orthotic therapy.
Not so much in the UK.
It's a big part of the training. And then when they get out, it depends where you work. If you're going to work for community health, then your biomechanics may never get used too much. Whereas if you work in a sports clinic, then the biomechanics is going to take on. And then it's up to you to do more training, because it's not something that you learn something in 6 weeks and go, that's all I need for the rest of my career. It is an ongoing process.
Absolutely. So she did not fill out her immigration paperwork on time or properly when she got into Canada. And so after her passport expired, she had to go.
Oh.
And then we were back to the drawing board, and we ended up hiring a podiatrist from South Africa. And same thing again, like he introduced me to FMT, foot mobilization therapy. Like that was amazing. And as an occupational therapist, I am big on psychology. So I worked in psychiatry, and we have that kind of background training as an OT. And so I am like all over that when it comes to seeing patients. I think that if I could throw out a percentage, I'd say, 30% of your success with a patient has to do with the psychology and the psychosocial issues that come up during the appointment, and how you handle them, and the clear communication with the client, and all those kinds of things. So he and I learned a lot from each other. And so we've hired 2 more, and they're in the immigration process right now. So we're really excited to bring them on board.
Okay. So it's been an ongoing struggle trying to get podiatrists there.
Ongoing.
So what happens if you didn't have a podiatrist there? Is there any problem? Was there any problem you calling yourself a podiatry clinic? because I know that, because I know in Canada there's, and other people have had on the podcast and they've talked about chiropody and podiatry. And
it's the Wild West here.
Yeah. So
It's
you
the
can
Wild
call
West.
yourself, you can call yourself a podiatrist where you are without any problems.
Well, so how it works is so as an occupational therapist, physiotherapist, doctor, psychiatrist, we're provincially legislated,
Yes.
which means we have to have a governing body in each province. Well, podiatrists don't. So everybody working in Nova Scotia, I think with the exception of one person, they're really all chiropodists, but they call themselves podiatrists. And so it's a little bit of the Wild West because there is no way to really police that.
Yeah.
The insurance companies will look at it, and if you're not part of the association, they won't cover you. But in terms of, like, most of the podiatrists, chiropodists here in Nova Scotia don't have a regulatory body. So if I'm a patient and I have a concern, I don't have a regulatory college to report to.
Okay.
So it's a little bit bizarre for me because as an OT, I sat on the College of Nova Scotia Occupational Therapists. And so I was really surprised to learn that in Canada, it's a little bit of the Wild West when it comes to podiatry / chiropody.
Yeah. So over there, because I've had a couple of people from Canada on the show, Tina Rainville, Greg Lawrence, and we spoke about this a few times about the word podiatry and the word chiropody and who can use it and who can't use it. And there's a bit of back and forth bickering over it.
There is. I mean, the reality is nobody knows what a chiropodist is here.
Yeah.
It's not a word you hear on television. Podiatry, you know what it is. People know, and I don't know why they know chiropody, podiatry, and not chiropody or chiropody. I do know in Storage Wars there's a podiatrist. And so that's a big reality show here in Canada. So I think he brought kind of the knowledge level up.
Yeah.
Because he was a bit of a character. And I think there's a soap opera now with a podiatrist on it. I think just exposure. We just don't have a lot of podiatrists here in Atlantic Canada. So people really sometimes don't even know the difference. I get that question all the time. So I would never call myself a podiatrist, but I get asked all the time, well, what's the difference between a pedorthist and a podiatrist? And
yeah.
And that frankly, people don't care. They just want you to fix them.
Pretty much. Patients do want to get fixed. The bottom line is they want to get fixed. They want to get out of pain.
Yeah.
And the title that the person has, which is why if somebody has, say, plantar fasciitis, they'll go to the GP. They'll go and see a physio. They'll see a chiropractor. They'll go to the chemist and they'll pick up some inserts because they want their foot pain fixed. They don't care what hat you're wearing when you actually fix it. But your reputation over a period of time is what will attract people to you.
Exactly. They care. I mean, the time that they really care when they see in their insurance coverage that they have coverage for podiatrists, but they don't have coverage, say, for somebody else. So that has been pretty, like, our Pedorthic Association here in Canada is very, very strong, and they have rallied for us particularly. I know there was a time where chiropractors wouldn't be covered for insurance for dispensing orthotics.
Okay.
But we've always, as pedorthists, been able to do that. So it was a surprise to find out that podiatry was a little bit of the Wild West. So there was a steep learning curve for me. Who to recruit?
Yeah. Have you had problems recruiting people because you're a pedorthist and they go, oh, I don't want to work for a pedorthist, or that hasn't been an issue?
That's a good question. It wasn't even on my radar until I called a Canadian podiatrist. I think he's actually a chiropodist, as a reference for another podiatrist who he had worked with during a placement when this new grad was in school. And I got the biggest attitude. And I was kind of shocked, actually. We were having this great conversation, and he said, wait, now, you're a pedorthist? And I said, yeah. And he said, and podiatrists work for you? I'm like, yeah, I own the clinic. And he goes, well, so you just need somebody to come and write prescriptions then? And I was really offended. And I thought, what an asshole. Like, I'm an employer. Does it matter what my job title is? Like, we actually, as a team, work really well together for the better of every patient we see. And, the podiatrists I've had work with me, they don't know a lot about shoes. So I come in on that end of things. The biomechanics side, we both learned from each other to make better orthotics. And I just thought that was really strange. So
it is funny. It's a funny attitude.
We see it here in Canada between chiropractors and physios. There's a hierarchy there. There's some sort of, I don't know what it is. I don't understand it. I don't think it's useful. I don't like it taking up any part of my time. So when that came up, I think it's interesting, and I think there's ego involved there, and I don't know what that's about. And I'm interested to talk about it because I think it's fascinating.
I think what's interesting on them saying that, and I can hear voices, I can hear people listening to this now going, yeah, and I would never work for a pedorthist. And I'm like, but you would work for a corporate podiatry company, for example. So I sold my podiatry business to a corporate podiatry company. Got paid really good money for it. Don't have any problems with it. I don't have any problems with people that work there. But if somebody said, oh, I wouldn't work for a pedorthist, I go, but you'd work for a corporate company who is owned by shareholders who could be a garbage man. It could be the baker down the road. It could be the candlestick maker. You're actually working for them. They are the shareholders. So it doesn't matter who owns the business. Is the business a good place to work?
But I don't think that's not what I heard.
Oh, no, I definitely sure that's probably not what you heard.
So I think if it was a candlestick maker, for example, I think he would have had an easier time with that. But because he thought of me as lowly old pedorthist, who probably, he's a chiropodist. I probably have more university training with my OT degree. Like, I don't get that hierarchy. I really don't understand it. So I just kind of laughed and I said, listen, dude, I've had this clinic for 20 years and I've never had to have prescriptions written. The GPs love us. They're more than happy. So no, that's not why I hire a podiatrist. It was a business decision. It's another revenue stream. It's a good team. It's better for our patients, period.
Yeah. Well, I said to you off air that there's a lot of podiatrists in Australia who will work at medical centers and they're working for that medical center. When they leave, they don't take the patient base with them. So definitely, even if they're on a percentage, they're really working for that medical center. There's podiatrists that work for physiotherapists over here. So I don't think Australian podiatrists so much would look at that as being an odd sort of arrangement. I don't think so anyway.
Maybe it's a Canadian thing. I hate to think that, but maybe it's a Canadian thing.
Maybe I'm naive. Maybe there's people listening to this now and they're punching their podcast player.
But I will tell you, my experience with podiatrists, and I'll say this, like, it might be a bit controversy, but
controversy is good.
My experience with even the two podiatrists that I have worked with so far, there was a bit of an ego. Mm-hmm. And again, I don't get that. They weren't all that in a bag of chips.
They weren't. What was that? What was that saying?
You've never heard that? Oh, I'm all that in a bag of chips.
I've never heard I'm all that.
You've never heard that?
No, that is fantastic though. I like that. I'm all that in a bag of chips.
You can use that.
That could be the title.
There you go. And the interviews that I've done, I've had numerous people where I got off the Zoom meeting and just went, you know what? There's ego written all over that podiatrist, and there's no way I can work with them.
Yeah, I think every profession probably has that. And I do, like, I've asked some podiatrists to come on this podcast and they've said, oh, no, I don't do that sort of thing. And my response was, what's that? I'm not going to pay you to come on. And, but I think there is certain ego. I think in every profession, I don't think it's just podiatry. I think it would be everywhere. And I have met some podiatrists that do have fairly high opinions of themselves. You just got to ask them how good they are.
Do you think it's more prevalent in the podiatry field?
No, definitely no, because I've met some physios that walk around like they don't walk, they glide. They just glide. Like either Jesus Christ, a guy like Jesus Christ, or like Poltergeist, but they just glide. And yeah, and I've seen chiropractors the same. I've met a lot of doctors and specialists at
It's
hospitals
interesting.
that
I haven't seen it with chiropractors. I haven't seen it with physios. I typically don't see it as much with GPs. Orthopedic surgeons, yes. And podiatrists, yes.
You know, they joke,
Like
the
overwhelmingly, yes.
The difference between an orthopedic surgeon and God is God doesn't think he's an orthopedic surgeon.
So I just thought it was, and maybe the sample size, my sample size isn't big enough, but man, I've talked to a lot. I've interviewed a lot of podiatrists. I've called podiatrists as references, and I've had lovely podiatrists, but there seems to be this consistent stream of ego, and I don't quite get it. I hope my sample size will expand and I'll see a difference in that.
I think your sample size is probably being a little bit small.
Yeah.
I think majority
of
Australian
Canadian, right? It's all
it might be Canadians.
Soil or beautiful reputation.
It can't be Canadians, because every Canadian I've ever met are the nicest people. Every time a Canadian is if there's a Canadian in a movie, they're like, and they always joke how they're super polite.
Yeah.
So, and I'm yet to meet a Canadian that has ever been anything but super nice.
Yeah. We're told everywhere we travel in the world, they always say, "Oh, you're Canadian, aren't you?" And we'll go, "How'd you know that?" It's just, we speak to people like they're just average people. Like we believe ourselves to be average people. Like what you see is what you get. And yeah, that's how we are.
Yeah, but I think
we're top shelf.
But I think whiskey is good. I think when it just comes to that sort of ego, I think in any profession, there's always going to be people. It wouldn't matter whether they did podiatry or did something else, they would still have an ego. If they were a carpenter, they'd probably be a carpenter with an ego. So I don't think the profession makes the person that way. I think they're just that way.
Or is it a personality trait that will then pull them in a certain direction?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
But you said before about communicating with patients, and I think sometimes you might think someone has an ego, but what they really have is poor communication skills. So they don't know how to communicate. So you see that because they won't talk to you, or they brush you off quickly. It could be shyness. It could be, I don't know how to communicate, and we may see that as ego. Whereas some people,
it's like a compensation.
Yeah. Whereas some people probably, they may think this shit don't stink. Yeah. So, or they're everything in a bag of chips.
All that in a bag of chips.
In a bag of chips. I'm going to say that to my wife tonight. Well, she's all
Maybe
that.
Maybe you're all that in a bag of chips. See what she says, huh?
I know. Every now and then I'll say something to her that I've heard. Yeah. What was it? Towier than a Roman sandal. And
haven't heard that one.
You haven't heard that one. I'm towier than a Roman sandal. Anyway. Geez, we got off track. So back into your podiatry business. So
yes.
We've talked a bit about your story. We've talked about you need to get podiatrists over there, which is great. And then you've also got the shoe store. Was the shoe store always something that you wanted to do? Or was the shoe store something that just happened? Because we used to. Who
wants to do retail?
No,
right? Retail is a nightmare. We have at each clinic about $175,000 of inventory. I wouldn't have done it if I didn't feel like I absolutely had to do it to improve the outcomes of my orthotics. The reality is we are in rural Nova Scotia. In New Glasgow, we're an hour and 45 minutes from the city. So people were leaving, with my recommendations for the kind of shoe for them, and they come back with shite. They just, they'd made the trip to Halifax. They came back, thought they had done this great thing, and they were wearing a shoe completely inappropriate. And so I started, we probably all did this. We started bringing in a few pair to sell one pair. And then all of a sudden you've got a wall of shoes. And finally I just said one day, you know what, either we should or get off the pot, like go all in or get all out. So we went all in and it worked.
Yeah, I know a lot of podiatrists that have, because we had a shoe store in Cairns here as well, and did that, number of years. And I was approached by a lot of podiatrists who say, is it worth bringing shoes in? And you said the same thing. If you're going to do it, you've got to do it right. You can't, it's not one of those things that you can try and skimp. Oh, we'll just have this one in that color and that size. You either got to go all in, or it's always going to be a bit Mickey Mouse.
Now, I mean, looking back, 50% of our revenue is actually retail and 50% is foot care. So it's worked out for us. But I think it's because of our location, and I have massively problematic feet myself. I test everything before I bring it in. I love marketing, so shoes are a lot easier to market than podiatry and pedorthics. I mean, that's kind of boring to the average Joe.
But it's also diversification. You're also diversifying, because I used to say with our podiatry business, the problem with the podiatry business is the podiatrist, and might mean that they're a problem to work with. But if 100% of your income is derived from podiatry and you do not have a podiatrist there, or there's an injury, then that income can stop. Whereas if you diversify your income, your business, to have other streams of income coming in, then if the podiatrist is in there, okay, that's going to be a big chunk, but you've still got other streams coming through.
Exactly. Yeah. So we were really lucky. We picked up some big brands like Birkenstock, and like we're known as the Birkenstock dealer for all of northern Nova Scotia. We carry Blundstone, Australia. Well, they're not made there anymore, but some New Balance, some great brands that really do us well. And it's worked. And I think it's worked well to have it all under one roof. People really like coming and having us come out at the end of the appointment and say, look, here's what you look for. Here's what's suitable for your feet. So they get hands-on and they get educated. It's like a bonus. People love it.
Yeah. Do you do ski boots?
We don't do ski boots. No.
I'm disappointed.
We have a lot of sporting stores here in Nova Scotia, so that's their specialty. And I am a big believer that stay in your niche.
Yeah.
There's a niche for everybody. There's enough for everybody. So we stay, if there's someone else locally doing it and they're doing a good job, all the power to you. Keep it up. We'll refer to you. No problem.
Yeah, it's really interesting you should say that. I did my most recent online marketing workshop only this week. And one of the things I do is what is your unique selling proposition? I give them to all like 3 circles. And in that unique selling proposition, part of it is, what do your patients want? So you go, okay, what do they want? So you got them in one circle. And then they all sort of overlap, where you'll say, what do you do better than your competition? What do you do equal with your competition? And what does your competition do better than you?
Yeah.
And then where those 3 things touch what the patient is looking for, whatever you do better than everybody else, that's what you should be trying to sell. And that's what you should be talking about. What you do equal with your opposition, who cares? You do it all the same. So it doesn't really make any difference. And if they do something better than you, then don't even try and compete against that if you know they're better at you, because you will get your ass kicked. Yeah, and agreed. Sometimes podiatrists try to compete against another podiatry clinic who does something so much better than them, and it's so obvious, and they spend a lot of time and money and effort. So to me, it's find your groove.
And that very early on in owning my business, I realized I am not all that in a bag of chips. Like, I don't know everything. There's a reason why there's different professions out there, and I kind of had that ego a little bit in the beginning of my career, and it shoots you in the foot, no pun intended, because people look for you to fix everything. Well, you might need to go to physio. You might need the anti-inflammatories. You might need something that I don't offer. So it's no big deal. I'll refer you out, kind of thing. And from a business perspective, that was the smartest attitude I could have taken, because I hired people who did the marketing better. I hired people that, were my business consultants. I take the classes, I take the courses, because I don't know it all, nor will I ever.
Yeah, it's a good point. Because I know a lot of podiatrists, I think one of the problems with podiatry in general as a profession is, and I'm not saying this is about everybody. So if I offend anyone with what I'm about to say, then you know I am actually
Don't write
talking to
me.
you. Yeah, then I am actually talking to you if you get offended. But I feel some podiatrists are just tight asses. They're just tight. They should just call themselves guppy, tight as a fish's bum. And
I haven't heard that one either. Watertight.
Yeah, watertight. But the thing is, they will set up their own business, but they do it on a shoestring budget. They don't employ a receptionist because I'll do it myself and save money. They don't get help with their marketing. They don't get a business coach. They try and they think by saving money, in the end, it's going to work out. But by trying to save money, all it does is slow down their eventual success. And some of them never get there because they never get out of first gear because they're so busy just trying to hang on to everything that they've actually got.
Do you think it's tight with funding, or do you think it's do you think it's a little bit of ego? I remember thinking, I'm not going to hire an accountant. I can do that. This is my business. I need to know my numbers. I think there's a lot of that. I'm giving it away and I feel bad or guilty.
Yeah, it could be that. It could be partially
a lot of business owners. Yeah, I think there's a little bit of both, maybe.
I think some people do have a bit of an ego that if I ask for help, that means I'm telling everyone I don't know what I'm doing. And like I had a number of business coaches through my career, and every couple of years they may have changed as my mind sort of expanded and I needed something else. I also think it's fear that they don't do it. And I also think there's two attitudes. Some people have a mindset of abundance where they just think there's enough for everybody. And it doesn't matter how much you get, there's going to be a lot more there for everybody else. So you just go for it. But there's another group, I think, got a mindset of scarcity. And they think there's limited resources and they must try and hang on to everything themselves, because if they let too much of it go, then there's not going to be anything there for them. But they realize you just got to let it go.
Yeah. It's tough when you first open a business. It's
hell yeah.
The expenses and the payroll. I remember at Christmas, I didn't take a pay because I had to pay my staff. That didn't happen often, thank heavens, but I wouldn't still be in business if that were an ongoing issue. But, owning a business, there's a lot to know. There's a lot to learn. It's an ongoing process for sure.
Yeah. I remember my first business when by the time you paid all the bills and you looked at all the hours that you did, I'm sure I was on like $5.50 an hour. It's you really just went, my God, why am I doing this? I should just get a job and work for somebody else. But it's that entrepreneurial spirit when you just know that you should be working for yourself.
Yeah.
And I remember I remember I was paying my business coach at one particular stage. What I was paying them was more than what I was actually making myself.
Wow.
But I knew that if I didn't pay them and I tried to just keep that money, then I wasn't going to develop over a period of time. So I thought, and it was only like 3 to 6 months that I was paying that, all of a sudden, then I was making more than them. And it sort of just grew from there. But it's just taking that, it's like a bit of a leap of faith, I think.
Yeah. It's looking at the end game, isn't it? If you're only looking short term, you're never going to hire those people. You're never going to grow unless you're looking at that long road and the bigger picture.
Well, it's like employing your first podiatrist. You got your business to a certain point, it's starting to grow. And the same person with a scarcity mentality or a bit of fear may say, oh, I'm not going to employ someone because if I employ them, they're going to leave me and go and set up across the road. Well, more than likely.
That just happened to me, actually.
Well, I was about to say, more than likely it won't, but it can happen. But you can't keep running your business with that sort of fear. But I also think when you employ someone, you also take a pay cut because there's only a certain amount of work there. So you're going to take a drop in pay, but eventually over a period of time, you'll get that back and more.
Yeah.
You had someone set up an opposition to you?
Technically, yes. Supposedly in the next couple of weeks. I had a podiatrist from South Africa, older gentleman. I had to manage him. He was a man-child, and I learned the FMT. I'm really grateful he introduced that to me. but a lot of issues, a lot of cleanliness issues. When we had to lay him off because of COVID, because they shut us down for 6 weeks,
Yeah.
the rooms were left in such a state. They were so bad. I took videos of them, like dirty scalpels.
So
It
pause
wasn't
there for a
good.
sec. I can say, so anyway, guys, next week, my guest is a South African podiatrist that used to work with somebody
In Nova Scotia, Canada.
in Nova Scotia, Canada, but yeah.
So we didn't bring him back because he was a handful to manage. His standards were never up to that of the clinics. And I started recruiting right away as soon as I knew I wasn't going to bring him back. And he's opening like literally 5 blocks down the street, 1st of March.
Yeah. Well, I've had at least two podiatrists that I know of that used to work for me when I had the clinic in Cairns, who left and went and set up their own business and wouldn't have known. Just didn't. And to me, if some people you're just not a good match with.
Yeah.
So what about, like, I'm not saying anything bad against that South African podiatrist, but say if you guys are not a match, then you're best not to work together. And even if he does set up across the road, patients that prefer him, then prefer him. That'll free up space in your clinic to see other patients that actually prefer the way you do things.
I think someone said to me, a business coach years ago said, hire slow, fire fast.
Oh, hell yeah.
Man, that was good advice, because I tend to hold on to people and try to coach them. If someone's cleanliness standards aren't up to snuff, that's a personality thing.
Yeah.
I don't know that can be coached. I wasn't successful. I was successful with some coaching for sure. But the cleanliness, no, it just didn't change.
The other tip someone said to me, never hire on your gut, but fire on your gut.
Yes.
So if your gut is going, oh, I've got a good feeling about this person, even though the whole resume is completely wrong, and all the references I've read said, no, do not hire this person, but my gut's telling me I can turn them around. Don't listen to your gut. It's lying to you. But if your gut, once you're employing someone, goes, oh, this person's not fitting, it's just not working, they said you should listen to your gut.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah.
But
well, we work so close together, right? It has to be right. It has to be a good fit.
Yeah.
Like, I need to go to work and be happy. That's my goal. Go to work, be happy. But just to back up, you said something about the USP, unique selling proposition.
Yeah.
And one of my business coaches years ago, just in case I forget to say this about shoes, one of the best pieces of advice I was ever given in terms of the retail side of things is to identify your ideal client.
Yes.
Name them, visualize them. And when you go buy shoes, and this is difficult for a woman because I'm a crow. So if I see a really beautiful shoe, I'm all over it like white on rice. And it's been a problem, right? Because I bring that stuff in, it doesn't sell. I like it, but it's not for our ideal clients. So we really drill down, and we have a name for her. We know what she drives. We know what part of her career she's in. And whenever I go to the shoe shows shopping, I always say, is Anne-Marie going to like that? Is she going to pull in her SUV and look at that and go, that's the shoe for me, and try it on and not look at the price? And if the answer is no, then we don't bring it in.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's when I do my marketing workshops, I harp on about the ideal client, the ideal patient all the time. And a lot of people sometimes say, oh no, I know my ideal patient. It's a man or woman between the ages of 25 and 55. And I go, and that is why you're struggling, because it's so broad, and they have this fear that if they try and narrow it down too much, then they're going to miss people. But they don't realize, no, if you narrow it down, you're going to really hit the people you want. And the people just outside of that. To me, I always, in my talks when I do it, have the analogy of a dartboard. If you're aiming for the bullseye, if I give you 10 darts and you throw it, unless you hung around pubs and you drink a lot of beer and you live in the UK, you might get 9 out of 10 in there. But for the rest of the world, you throw it at the dartboard, you might get, you might get 1 out of 10 that will go hit the bullseye. And the rest will be on the outside. You might get the odd really weird one that goes out for a mile. But if I spun you around and just throw those 10 darts and just see where they end up, in your head, you want the bullseye, but that's not really where you're targeting.
Yeah.
You may not even hit the board. And that's what a lot of people
Totally.
do with their marketing.
Yeah. Agreed. It was tough for me to, because, you know, I always found I wanted to please everybody, right? I always wanted to please all my staff. I always wanted I wanted to be everything to everybody. And that got me high blood pressure is what that did. Because there's no way, right?
Yeah.
And I remember doing the ideal client exercise and accepting, you know what? We don't carry a lot for men. They don't spend the money. They got one pair of sneakers and one pair of winter boots and maybe dress shoes if they're not a hillbilly. So to go to a dance or a funeral, other than that, they're wearing sneakers. So I'm not going to make any money on that.
Yeah, we did the same.
So our entire shoe store is like 98% women.
Yeah, ours was exactly the same. And even to the point when we used to have around January, February, so this huge back to school promotion, which means the shoe store had a lot of children's shoes in the shoe store. And I said to my wife one day, how much money do you actually make off of each of those kids' shoes?
Yeah.
And she went, oh, well, you know, yeah, this amount. And I went, do you know that January, February is so busy, just the podiatry business in general. And even though I know you sell a lot of shoes, when you sit down and work out how much did you actually make from all that effort and all that retail space it takes up, whereas you could sell more of, say, the ladies' shoes, sell probably a sixth of the amount and make more money. And when we sat down and worked out, we went, get rid of kids' shoes. So we ended up getting rid of kids' shoes. It just wasn't viable. It's like that 80-20 rule. Yeah, 80% of your income will usually come from 20% of the services that you provide.
Yeah.
Yet people try and market the other 80% as well. Think, well, if I market them, I'll get more of them. No, people don't want them.
Yeah. We did. I could have told the exact same story. We did the same thing years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, we were on the same. If I was actually looking for a job, which I'm not, and I wanted to do a bit of travel.
Would you work with me?
I would love to come over and work there for 6 months. My wife would work in the shoe shop. I could work as a podiatrist. I reckon it would be absolutely fantastic.
Do you know what? Summer. I have traveled
be summer, definitely winter.
And when I come home to Nova Scotia, like literally, if people weren't around, I probably would get off the plane and kiss the ground. Like I am so grateful that this is where I get to live. It's so safe here.
Yeah, bears.
It's the 4 seasons, like they're beautiful, every one of them. Like we're so excited to live in this log chalet and see the next season because everything's going to be different.
Yeah. Do you have bears where you are?
Oh yeah, coyotes, bears, lynx, bobcat.
I came across a bobcat. I was walking in Arizona desert with my friend Dave Freeze, and as we're walking through, out of the corner of my eye, I said, "Dave, rattlesnake." And he went, how the hell can you see a rattlesnake from here? So I don't know. I've got good vision, long distance. And so I ran off to go and check out this rattlesnake. I wanted to get a photo. And as I get up there, I sort of stop. And he goes, and he was like miles behind me. He yells, what's wrong? I said, there's a big cat looking at me. And he goes,
wow.
He goes, if it's a mountain lion, I'm turning and running because it'll get you first. And I went, no, it's not a mountain lion. And he says, oh, bobcat. And he said, don't pet the bobcat. So it was still, and then the bobcat and the rattlesnake all of a sudden had a fight, and they're going.
And you got to witness that?
I'm standing 8 feet away from this thing, watching it, and I'm taking a photo, and and my friend, I said to my friend, how often does that happen? He goes, only in National Geographic. He said, you just don't see that stuff. He said, that is just a really, really freaky thing to see. Yeah. So I was very grateful, but I'm not into things that'll kill me.
Well, you know, my husband will never
safe.
go to Australia because of the snakes.
Yeah, but everything over here that'll kill you is really little. It's the spiders.
Things okay here pretty big.
Yeah,
mind you, I mean, I think my whole life I've seen, I don't know, maybe 2 bears, and they were in my car, and they were like, you know, over the hill or whatever. We see a lot of deer. Like we see more deer in right downtown Truro than we do out here in the country. Well,
when I was in Powell River in British Columbia, I was telling my friend that I go and visit there. Went to his parents' place, and they've got like 2 acres. And I said to them, yeah, you get any bears or anything like that? They said, oh, yeah, with the bears running around. So I'm walking through the yard, and all of a sudden there's this big pile of bear shit. And it was warm. You could almost still see the steam coming off it. I took a photo. And
why did you touch it? How did you know it was warm?
I put my hand over the top of it and to see how long it had been. I said, so a bear has just come through here. I said, based on the pile of poo, that was a big bear. And which proved bears do shit in the woods. So, so I took a photo
like
of it.
Versus at home in the toilet, or?
Yeah. I don't know. That's just a saying, the bears shit in the woods. You don't say that over there?
No.
Oh,
what does it mean?
Well, yes, it's an obvious question.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Bear shit in the woods. Well, of course,
when cows
is the Pope is the Pope Catholic?
Gotcha.
That sort of thing, yeah. And then we're sitting there in his yard, and all of a sudden there's this, like, just out the front window, there's this big deer just standing there looking at us.
Yeah.
And I must admit, when you do see things like that in those sort of areas, you just go, oh, we don't see that in Cairns. We get kangaroos and wallabies and that bouncing around everywhere, but not wild beasts that will gnaw on my leg.
Well, deer here are very domesticated. So in downtown Truro, it's actually a big problem. They'll come right up to your door. They'll look in through your window. You can feed them, like a lot of people feed them. Like, it's crazy. They're very domesticated. So when we moved out to the country, we were like, we're not seeing any deer. We got to go into downtown to see deer. It's kind of crazy.
I got bitten by a squirrel.
Oh yeah, we have all kinds of squirrels.
Yeah,
but they don't gnaw your legs off.
No, it bit me on the finger. So I was feeding it, and then it ran up my leg, and I sort of tried to like move it out of the way, and it bit me.
Yeah.
So,
anybody watching who's interested in Nova Scotia, Canada, like, this is an amazing place. It's not just me that's hiring. I know 2 people right now who are selling their clinics in Nova Scotia, 2 podiatrists.
Yeah.
I have a colleague of mine who's been looking for podiatrists in PEI, which is Prince Edward Island. It's north of Nova Scotia. It's like it's like a 2-hour drive. There's a big huge bridge.
Short contracts? Like if somebody wanted to come over for say 6 months, if someone said, wow, that sounds really cool. Because I've seen people, I saw an ad recently, and it was someone wanting a podiatrist for the ski season to work at Thredbo, which is a ski resort in Australia.
Okay.
And they said, the ski season's so many months of the year. So, and I've heard people that travel to different places during the ski season doing other things. So somewhere like Nova Scotia, is that a place where someone could come and do a 6-month contract?
Absolutely.
And get on the road, especially if they like summer and not freezing temperatures.
So we have, I've been in contact with a Scottish podiatrist, chiropodist, technically. And he went ahead and got I think it's called a working visa. So it was the way Canadians are very open, even our government. They're like, come on. And they give you all kinds of immigration streams to do different things. So there's temporary immigration streams. Is it called a vacation working permit? So you get to come and you get to kind of travel around, and that's what you do, is you get these short-term contracts. And then you could travel all across Canada while you work and kind of make money to afford to travel. But there's all kinds of different options.
Okay, well, I think people should, if they want to do a bit of travel, like I know at the moment, COVID makes things a little bit more difficult.
A little bit.
Yeah, the vaccine's coming out. It's getting spread around.
Yep.
Yeah, in another year or so, maybe 2 years, things will get back to normal. So if anyone's thought about doing a bit of travel and working at the same time, Nova Scotia could be the place.
Well, right now, Nova Scotia is committing to, I think it's 2,000 immigrants a year minimum to help our labor market shortage. Canada right now is prioritizing essential healthcare workers still during COVID to immigrate them in. So nurses, CCAs, podiatrists, GPs, COVID has, yes, it's slowed down the paperwork, but they haven't said, oh, no one can come. They've said, no, we still need the essential healthcare workers. So we're still going to prioritize them. It's just with COVID, people are working from home, and it's taken a little bit longer with the paperwork for immigration.
Okay. Well, I'm sure there's someone listening to this who is going, this sounds like something I could do.
Yeah.
So.
And she sounds really cool. I'd like to work with her.
Yeah. And I want to work with her. So Karey, I want to thank you for coming on the Podiatry Legends podcast, sharing part of your story about how you got into the wonderful world of podiatry in the first place. And so thanks a lot. And I hope you enjoyed it as well.
I did. I'm really glad you asked me to partake, and people can look me up on LinkedIn or look at Health Walks. We have a really, really, really active Facebook page.
Well, actually, that's what I was going to say. If people want to reach out to you, what is the best way of getting hold of you?
LinkedIn, Facebook, website.
Yeah, I'll put all your details. Yeah, I'll put all your details in the show notes. That'll be on my website. So so if people want to reach out or just learn more about Nova Scotia, or even if they just want to travel there for a holiday, eventually they can duck their head in and spend a day with you and make it tax deductible.
Perfect. Sounds great.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, see you later.
Take care.